Welcome to the Rivals-in-Law podcast, episode 6. I'm your co-host, Daniel Allender.
Yeah, and I'm your co-host, Sam Abrams. And Daniel, we're on episode 6.
We are on episode 6.
We've made it, mama.
6 weeks in a row. Can't believe we're doing it. We're here. It's exciting. So today we have a special episode. As you all know, the NFL Draft is coming up in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so before we dig into our special segment today, my man Sam has an invite he wants to extend to everyone.
Yeah, so April 27th is the draft. It's on Thursday. And we decided it'd be a really cool idea to watch the draft in person live and to kind of do a live broadcast, podcast type deal. We've invited a few of our friends who are also listeners of ours. Trevor will be there as well as Cody Williamson. And we're extending that invitation out to you. If you want to be there, if you're one of those people that listens often, it'll be at my house. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have some people from different camps. Trevor is a Detroit Lions fan. Cody is a New Orleans Saints fan, so he'll be with Daniel on that wagon.
Wear your jersey if you come. Represent your team.
Wear your jersey, represent your team, and let's get this episode kicked off, Daniel.
And before we do, you can reach out. Our Instagram is Rivals-in-Law. On Instagram, we got a Facebook page. Just send us a direct message, and we can get you the address and the details.
Speaking of Instagram, Daniel, we had a pretty interesting come across one of our videos. That was pretty cool.
We did. We had a little. We're getting caught up on our social media game. We've been trying to figure it all out, but we put out a couple. We did a reel. And a former Connecticut quarterback.
Yeah.
And now he's playing in the XFL or in one of the professional leagues. Gave a like.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. So maybe in the future we'd love to have either college players or NFL players or even just XFL, wherever you're at, different perspectives on the show. So we're making some movements.
Yeah, we're moving in the right direction. Daniel, tell the people what this episode's all about. Tell them why we're wearing LSU and Alabama gear as we're talking about the NFL draft.
Yes, so if you're on the audio, we have our jerseys on. I'm wearing a number 7 LSU jersey. He's got an 18 Bama jersey. We got the red and purple on. So yeah, we got an interesting segment. So with the NFL draft coming up in less than 10 days, we want to cover a little segment on LSU and Bama players who have been drafted, not only like in the past year or two, but we're doing a decade look at some of basically NFLU. You know?
Yeah, we want to discuss. Hey, who really is NFLU? Look, for a lot of people, especially in the SEC, we pride ourselves on putting out the best product in college football. This is not a show where we're going to mention a lot about the Big 12 or the Pac-10. It's just kind of, it is what it is. Big 10, you'll get some kind of a shout out here or there. But for the most part, it's LSU and Alabama for 1 and 2 as the colleges responsible for putting out the most NFL draft talent, or the most talent going into the NFL draft. Ohio State, that's your one shout out, Big 10. Ohio State did tie LSU for second place.
So give us some numbers of let's just say, okay, so we wanted to do a decade look, and Sam and I both want to stretch it a year or two more because we had some good players in 2011.
Right.
But we're going back from 2012 to 2022. The players who've been drafted, but like you said, give us some numbers just of those top 3 teams. You mentioned Ohio State. How many players were drafted from those 3 teams?
So from Ohio State and LSU, it was 52 players each.
That's active roster. How many total? Because
that was active. So what I have in front of me is
I know LSU's number
for Bama since 2012. They've had 97 players drafted in the NFL. So since 2012. Now this does not count undrafted free agents or players that obviously don't go drafted. This is just ones that are taken in the NFL draft. So 97 players have been taken since 2012. What's LSU's number look like?
81. So we're 18 below this Bama guy over here, but I think both Ohio State and LSU had 81, right? That's what you told me. So
let me look it up real quick while you.
But yeah, so basically, we might have had some less overall. But I'm here not to talk just about quantity. We're talking about quality.
Right.
So that's what we want to do this segment is, we're looking at the decade teams, and we basically want to pull out who is NFLU. And like we said, we're gonna focus on the LSU Bama dynamic, some of the best players, and we have a really fun segment at the end. Maybe some all-decade teams squaring off who's gonna win.
Yeah.
So this is our first real time to dig into our name, our root, rivals in law. Have a little debate section. Who are some best players? Who would win? What's happening? So,
and bear with us. This is not something we don't script this. We talk about kind of what we want to do, and then we always just turn on the camera and we just wing it. That's why we're here. We're passionate about this. Real quick, just to go back to that number you were talking about before. So active players in the NFL from last year. Alabama had 58.
Okay.
LSU and Ohio State each had 52.
Gotcha.
Active. They're on an NFL roster and they're active. Then it drops down to 44, which is Georgia, Notre Dame, and Penn State, 37 and 35. Florida, 33. Michigan, 33. And then the first person that is going to represent the Big 12 is Oklahoma with 32, and they're coming to the SEC. So Big 12, it's not looking good for you.
And last thing I just want to touch on before we dive into this segment is, there's a question of best rivalries in college football. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of names tossed around with Michigan, Ohio State, this, and that. But if we're looking at best talent on the field, I mean, if you're looking at these stats, LSU Bama is the cream of the crop.
It is.
And that's why we had this podcast, man.
Yeah, it never fails. So look, being an Alabama fan that lives in Baton Rouge, I'm the subject of a lot of
butt end of a lot of jokes.
Yeah, I'm the butt end of a lot of jokes, but it's all in good fun. Once everyone sobers up and gets their head right, it's in good fun. But it's one of those things where no matter how each team is doing, whether Alabama has 1 or 2 losses or LSU has 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 losses, regardless of that, it's always a good product on the field. And it's always one of those things where you're going to have future NFL talent on the field playing.
Exactly. So let's do it. Let's dive into NFLU. And so first, before I think if you want to, we can go. So what we want to do is, as a total, we got the numbers out right. 97 from Bama, 81, but we're going to dig into the quality. And I think the best way to do that, we talked about maybe going position groups, and let's just kind of pick out some kind of position groups: QB, RB, wide receiver, DBU. We're going the whole bit and just kind of breaking down the past 10 years, some of those best profiles. So we're going to start with the offense, and what we'll do is, I guess we can name our all-decade team after.
Yeah. And this is going to be pretty much, just to kind of, so people can follow along, this is pretty much going to be our all-decade team, right? Whenever we say, let's talk about QB, we're going to choose the QBs that have come out as of recently and kind of, hey, what stacks up as far as quality to the person that came up in the school that they're representing, and seeing who takes the edge in that position. So if you follow along, you'll actually be able to pretty much tell our all-decade team.
So Sam, I want to give you the honor of going first with your QB. Who are you taking in the past 10 years from Alabama?
So you look back and you can see from this past 10 years. And there's ones before it. I can't even say there's great ones before it because there's not many good ones before when it comes to QB. But you look back and you see A.J. McCarron. And A.J. McCarron put out a really good product on the field as far as college football. That didn't pan out to the NFL. He is actually playing pretty well in the XFL for whatever that counts. But you look at the quarterbacks over the last, I'll say 7 years. There's been a change in the name of quarterback, or the quality of quarterback really, that's being brought out from the University of Alabama. So starting off with the first QB that really began to change that, and that was Jalen Hurts. And look, Oklahoma.
We got to put an asterisk.
There's an asterisk there. He graduated from Oklahoma, but he also graduated from Alabama, or he got drafted from Oklahoma. He got his undergrad from Alabama. He had significant snaps in Alabama for Alabama. And so it started there, and that's not the quarterback I'm choosing. I'm just saying that's where it started to get a lot better at the QB position.
That's fair. That's
in
fair.
Alabama.
You didn't put him one. I was going to say we'd have to have
he's-
some pushback if he put
he's
him
not
in
one, and he's not one because of the player that ended up really forcing him to Oklahoma, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. And so Tua, near and dear to my heart. I hope he stays healthy. He's a great guy. But he also is that kind of quarterback. He never won a national championship in Alabama, which is rare for a QB or for a football player in this era of Alabama football. But as far as on a talent level, it's yet to see. And the reason I'm not bringing up Bryce Young for all the Alabama fans that are like, "Oh, Bryce Young is the best quarterback to ever come to the school." I agree, but we don't know what he's going to be on the NFL level. The whole point of this exercise, if you would, is to judge the talent based on the product that they brought to the NFL. And so that's why A.J. McCarron isn't going to make the list, because he didn't really make the list in the NFL. So I'm going to say Tua Tagovailoa.
Okay, cool. Here we go, Tua. So before I go to the punch of the obvious choice for LSU, I got to build up this story. I got to build up the LSU pain that we have felt for years, going through the drought of having some of the best talent on the field but lacking the quarterback. Every year it's like, man, if we just had a quarterback. And we went through a drought, people. If you're with me, I know there's a lot of Louisiana listeners going through this. You know, we went through I'm trying to remember the, Jordan Jefferson era to
Zach Manberger.
I don't know. I'm going to show. Yeah, I'm building this up. And you said like there was a turn, and I think for LSU there was a little rise. I think in this past 10-year gap, we only had I was looking at it. We only had 3 quarterbacks drafted, and 2 of those were late. And those 2 were Danny Etling, if some of you remember. And this is actually a connection to Sam. He's at the Packers now.
He is. Danny Phantom is with the Green Bay Packers, baby.
He's with the Packers. And then it builds up to Zach Mettenberger. And he is one who, I think, dethroned Bama one of those years. Was he part of that team? Maybe that was Jordan Jefferson in 2012.
I think that was Jordan Jefferson.
That was Jordan Jefferson. So, but out of the, we know the 3 we're about to talk about. But Danny Etling, Zach Mettenberger, I think he's at my 2 spot. He went to the Titans. He's gotten significant time. But, of course, we got to reserve up. We've been in this drought. And then all of a sudden, 2018, we get a transfer from the school we talked about, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We got Mr. Joe Burrow. 2018, no one knew about him much. I was watching him as a senior in college. The man was doing great stuff. No one knew about him, and I thought this guy had potential. And then all of a sudden, as we know, 2019 has one of the best college football seasons in history.
And let's and this is not a dig at all at Joe
Right.
Burrow. This is more of a let's go ahead and take care of that asterisk that we talked about with Jalen Hurts going to Oklahoma. The difference between the asterisk that is there present for Jalen Hurts and not for Joe Burrow is Jalen Hurts had significant snaps at Alabama. Jalen Hurts got a degree from the University of Alabama. Jalen Hurts claims Alabama. Joe Burrow, the only thing about Ohio that he claims is the Cincinnati Bengals and the high school that he went to that has a stadium named after him now. So
they basically, Joe Burrow transferred when there was the Cardell Jones. There's 3-headed quarterback at Ohio State. He transferred to LSU. Basically got a significant playing time, like you said. All of this starts at LSU. But yeah, I mean, as we all know, had one of the greatest college football seasons ever, and has stamped himself as one of the greatest players of all time that has ever come through LSU's campus. And so I just want to give him this spotlight, give him the recognition. And not only that, is that he has come into the NFL and is immediately, I would say, within the top 5 quarterbacks right now. Has in his second year, I mean, he got hurt in his first year, was playing well. Second year brings the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. So I am very confident having this man leading the all-decade LSU team.
Yeah, I think first of all, like you said, there really is no other answer.
There's no, I mean, even just the comparison between LSU, Bama, I mean, having Joe Burrow, what he did in college, and now where he's led. But I mean, I guess Jalen Hurts, but there's the asterisk.
What I mean is there's no comparison with other LSU quarterbacks.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
there's none. I'll say this: the whole thing with Alabama and LSU, if Joe Burrow wouldn't have had the season that he had, there's no debating it. The consensus number 1 pick was going to be Tua. look, I've said it on the show before. Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Tua is. No matter how much I like Tua, that's just the truth. He's a better quarterback. He has more physical gifts that keep him healthy. Things of that nature. I will say this: that 2019 Alabama LSU game. Oh man. I was at that game, and I was at that game at Bryant Denny, and all you want, man, y'all deserved it. Y'all, that was a great game. That was the best. That was hands down the best all around team I've ever seen. The best all around first and second team, and it was close. It was way closer than people remember. It was outrageous. And so,
we might have to do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we'll do a whole recap.
LSU Bama week. Get ready. We're coming in hot. We might drop a couple episodes that week because this is where the rivalry is. We might have a whole little segment on the 2019 game. We might have a segment of last year of that Duke out and building up to this year. So there's going to be a lot coming down the pipe.
And I think right now is a great time to be an LSU Alabama brother-in-law, rival-in-law type thing because seriously. I think LSU's on the rise. I like what Brian Kelly's doing over there. But I think Nick Saban is proving that he still has plenty in the tank and he wants to get back on top. That recruiting class they just had come in is outrageous. And so, look, I would say, hey, let me start off with this next one. The list of running backs that have come from Alabama is longer than a Costco receipt. So with that being said, take it from here, and then I'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. So I gave him the lob for QB so I could come up on top, and so he's about to show me up real quick. But okay,
I'm about to crush him.
Let's just look at this real quick with LSU. So running backs, I will say, okay, if we're looking from a college perspective, we've had some really solid running backs.
Sure.
Transitioning to the NFL, it hasn't come across as well, but we've had a couple solid. So we're just going to go right into it. We both gave each other 2 running back slots, but we're going to give some context of other running backs that have come through so that we can kind of round out the class for RBU. So at my 1 spot, we got old Leonard Fournette. Okay, so this is a man who, incredible player, was on the Heisman run until he hit, I'm just going to say it, until he hit Bama.
I played against Leonard Fournette in high school, mind you.
No way.
I promise you I was on the same field as him. He was a much better athlete than I am. But it was at East Jefferson High School when I was in Metairie in 2012. Wow. You can look it up. He was playing for St. Aug. So I remember him running. I believe he was a freshman that year. And I remember thinking, good luck and Lord help the defensive guys that are in front of him for the next 6 years.
Just a man-child. The man was a man-child. When he signed, I thought, man, this guy's 30. But he had his baby in his hand, picked LSU. But no, it was really special. That was when I was at LSU. He was my age, and so I got to see him every year throughout, which was amazing. I'm actually wearing his jersey. Shout out to Leonard. Had to put him on RB1 spot. Of course, he got a Super Bowl ring with Brady, which was cool.
That was cool, yeah.
And to see that, if we're gonna pull up just some stats with him,
and it was he played a significant part in that Super Bowl
run, gosh, he's really kind of come up on the up and out. He got drafted by Jacksonville. He was the 4th pick. He was first round 4th pick to the Jaguars. He's had 2,000-yard seasons. There was 2 others that were close to 1,000 yards. 9 touchdowns, 8 1 year. So solid running back, solid guy to plug and pop. There were some thoughts about him being lazy or this or that, but he's really overcome that. He's come up, so he's my RB1. At the 2, again, it's gonna be hard to stack up with Sam, but I got to put Clyde. So, if we're talking from college to NFL, he got the ring. He was on that 2019 team. Scat back.
Huge factor in that 2019 season.
I think he is the unsung hero of that championship run. So many dump-off passes that he just made something with. He just a lot of spin moves, can move around. Clyde, he's one of those backs where you got to take in both running and receiving. His rookie year, he had 800 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. He also had 300 yards receiving, a touchdown. He's kind of doing both. I will say, at this point, Pacheco is looking really good. He might overtake him. But I feel good about having Leonard and Clyde at my 1-2. And then just some honorable mentions to kind of talk about RBU at LSU. We got Jeremy Hill with the Bengals, who had some great couple 1,000-yard seasons. Great guy. Darrell Williams, free agent signing with the Chiefs, did well. Alfred Blue at the Texans. Darius Geis, amazing college, didn't pan out in the NFL. But I just want to give some context for LSU. Again, a lot of their talent was in the college days.
Right.
And we just haven't seen all of them transition like we would probably at Bama. But I'm just going to toss it to you for that.
Well, so let me start off with saying this. So, Alabama put out some really good running backs. They've put out some really good running backs. But there's been a lot of running backs that just haven't panned out. So, you look at a T.J. Yeldon now. T.J. Yeldon has a bad rap. And Daniel's laughing because I brought up T.J. Yeldon before we started recording, and I think a tear streamed down his face because of the screen pass that ruined his night. But
I was in Tiger Stadium. We were about to take down Bama in what had been many years, and a screen pass. I think it was McCarron. McCarron dumped screen pass, took it to the almost to the house, and they won the game. So yeah.
Yeah, so with that being said, but T.J. Yeldon did not do that well in the NFL. And now part of that was, and he wasn't bad, but part of that was because he was with a Jacksonville team that at the time was very poor. You have some other running backs that have come out. So you have Mark Ingram that came out in 2011. Now Mark Ingram is super underrated as far as his productivity in the NFL, and he's been a really good back in the NFL. You have Eddie Lacy, and as a Green Bay fan, look, I love Eddie Lacy. He had 2 years back-to-back 1,000-yard years, and then he had trouble staying healthy and put on some weight with those health issues. Look, he's one of those guys, though, I'm telling you, if you ever met Eddie Lacy, you would love Eddie Lacy.
Really?
He's one of those guys that he just has a really a kind personality, super happy-go-lucky guy. He's that's one of the reasons Green Bay just loved him. And then you have some other guys that have come through that Bo Scarborough tested off the charts. Dallas took a flyer on him in the 7th round, never panned out to be much. And then you come up and you had this kind of this golden age of running backs, right? And so you had, let's start off with the king. My first one, Derrick Henry. And look, that same year that Leonard was supposed to win the Heisman, I remember I was so that was the first year of the college football playoffs. And I remember I was in Tiger Stadium for that. I believe, if I remember, it was a 2-against-4 matchup.
2-4.
And LSU was 4, Bama was 2. Leonard Fournette was averaging like something crazy, like 275 yards a game.
I went freshman year when he was a freshman. And
yeah, but that's whenever he got smoked.
Yes, that was at Bama.
No, this is his junior year.
Oh, you're talking about okay.
Yeah, this is whenever Lenny was going for Heisman, and he was throwing people out of his way, and he was just a man-child again. But I remember I was at that game, and I remember as an Alabama fan, we were saying, hey, if we could just hold Leonard Fournette to under 175 yards. He got like 36 yards, I think, that game. Derrick Henry began his Heisman campaign in that game.
You're right. You're right.
He just went on a tear, and then coming into college or into the NFL, a lot of people said, well, if Leonard Fournette was running behind that line at Alabama, he could have done exactly what Derrick Henry did. So a lot of people, when was Leonard Fournette drafted?
It must have been 2019,
2018. What did you say? What was the round and pick?
Oh, round and pick.
First round.
I think it was 1st and 4. I'm gonna double check on that. Leonard Fournette. He was 4th pick, first round. So the Jaguars.
Derrick Henry was picked 2nd round, and I can't remember exactly what pick, but I believe it was the 45th pick to Tennessee. A lot of people just said, hey, man, this guy's not going to make it in the NFL because he's kind of this weird size, mixture. He's been a stud. He's been, year after year, the leading yards running back responsible for the most yards. Just been just kept Tennessee relevant. So you can't look further than Derrick Henry. He's an
unanimous one.
Yeah, he's absolutely one of the best running backs to come out of college football in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you look at Saquon, right, and you look at some of the other guys, Christian McCaffrey, dude. So in his career, Derrick Henry already has 8,335 yards rushing and 78 touchdowns. In 2022, And he was only available for 11 games.
Yeah, I don't know my fantasy team, so I know.
11 games. He rushed for 1,538 yards in 11 games. That is a man, ladies and gentlemen. 6'3", 247 pounds. Leonard Fournette, just a stud. So he's one of those guys that I don't think you could look much further. And then you have somebody that a lot of the time I'll forget about, to be honest with you, because he didn't have that huge of an impact. Let me preface this because all the Alabama fans are going nuts. Oh, he was great when he was in college. Yes, he was. He was good, but he wasn't as good as what he would end up testing to be in the way that he was drafted. So Josh Jacobs. Last year he played in 15 games. He rushed for 1,653 yards and got 12 touchdowns. He's just been a consistent monster in the NFL. Really good running back. Just all around good football player, is able to be some kind of a weapon with receptions. So last year he had 400 yards. A year before he had 348 yards. So both years he had decent production, even receiving, catching the ball out of the backfield. He had his best year last year, and I believe, if I remember, he was playing on a franchise tag, or it was a 5th-year option without the guarantee of a future contract. And he rushed for 1,653 yards. So he had a really good campaign. He played in all 17 games. I think that's great. When you look at those two guys, I don't think it's much of an argument. We're not talking about college production here. We're talking about NFL production. I think Alabama, between LSU and Alabama, holds RBU pretty easily on that one.
Yeah. So if we're taking a recap so far, I think I got LSU will take the QBU if we're going between LSU and Alabama, and then Alabama runs away, literally and figuratively,
right,
with RBU.
And I agree with that. I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. Moving on to wide receiver U. Do you want to cook this one up, or you want me to get into it?
Man, so let me say this real quick because
this is gonna be a fun one.
LSU fans love whenever this comes up because they're like,
I'm licking my chops right now.
It's way closer than anybody wants to admit. So you look at it, and even in college, it's a way closer matchup. And in the NFL, especially when you consider, and I have not seen Daniel's list, I'm just taking a stab. I'm pretty sure both of these guys, for sure, one of them is on your list. Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Jarvis has been consistent.
Let's not jump to the...
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Daniel. Daniel, go ahead.
All right, I'll take us off. All right, you got your fun with the running backs. We're about to have some fun with the wide receivers. So LSU, I mean, man, you got so many options here. But we said 3 starters.
Right.
We're going to take 3 starters. So put it my 1-2, who are crazy. These guys were on the same team with the QB1, but of course we're going to start off with Jamar Chase. Just a dog. I mean, absolutely, that 2019 year just went off. And to think that the Bengals took him, I mean, of course you had Joe Burrow whispering in the ear. But the amazing thing about Jamar was, he sat out the year. There was all of these haters going into the NFL. As we're talking about NFL production as well. The guy went off in college, took him to the championship. But to see he took the off year, comes into the draft, everyone's saying the dude is not catching balls, this and that, gets drafted by the Bengals, and the man shows out. He did. Sets the rookie record for yardage. I think he had, let me see, I've got his stats right here. He had 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns. That was the year that they went to the Super Bowl, almost capped it all off with Joe Burrow. Amazing to see that college connection, as we talked about,
right.
Having that chemistry in the NFL. So Jamar Chase, I love having this guy at the Z or the X, starting at number 1. You got number 2, Justin Jefferson. The man is just smooth. The dude's route running, his catching ability, his awareness is elite. And again, you saw that in college. I mean, it was just a 1-2 punch on that championship run. But as we move again, he has broken all kind of records for the first 3 seasons. He broke Odell's record for the most yardage in the first 3 years. And so as you're looking at Justin Jefferson, I'm going to pull up his stats real quick as well. I mean, the dude, it's just unspeakable. I mean, first year, rookie season, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. His second season, 1,600 yards, 10 touchdowns. Last year, 1,800 yards, broke the receiving record.
Shattered it.
The man is just insane. So having those in my 1-2, I'm sitting pretty. I'm feeling really good. And then not to mention, you got in the third spot, Odell Beckham. I'm going to take Odell Beckham at my 3. And again, I mean, right now, he's floating to team to team. But if you look at his first 3 years with the Giants, again, ridiculous. He was the one who had the record for the first 3 seasons, most yardage and touchdowns, which Justin Jefferson broke. Jamar Chase is on pace to break what Justin broke. And so having Odell Beckham, I mean, you look back to the Super Bowl win, not the Super Bowl run, but he had the catch over the head that everyone's seen in the end zone, which is just insane, incredible hands. And the thing, too, that Odell and Jarvis were on the same team as well. I'm going to put Odell at 3, but just some honorable mentions. So we're talking about wide receiver U. Mm-hmm. You have Jarvis Landry, who was at the Dolphins forever. He broke the receptions in a year record that might have been broken by now. But Jarvis, just a solid receiver. He's with the Saints now, which is awesome to see. And then a couple other guys I'm just going to mention. DJ Chark, who he had a Pro Bowl season. He's now, I think he was at the Lions, but he just got traded. I'm not sure where he's at now, but he was at the Jaguars. Now he's in the Lions.
Correct. I think you're right there.
Another great receiver. And then you got Russell Gage, of course, at Tampa Bay, who had an all right college, but he's really produced a lot more with the Atlanta Falcons, now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, I'm just feeling really good with those.
He got traded from the Detroit Lions to the Carolina Panthers.
Panthers, that's right. Okay, at the Panthers now. So I just we'll just say I'm sitting good with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, my top 3, and then I got those other 3 in reserve.
So look, the only thing I would have a slight issue with what you said is I think Justin Jefferson is a better receiver than Jamar Chase. I think that's arguable. I think it's debatable, but I think when you look at Justin Jefferson, 128 receptions, 1,800 yards last year with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback.
Yeah. I know.
Not his boy Joe Burrow, who's going to throw him the ball 9 out of 10 times.
Exactly.
So
no. If I had to pick, okay, if we're ranking, I had them at the 1-2.
I still can't believe Green Bay passed up on Justin Jefferson.
Oh my gosh! All the teams that did pass up.
So he's an absolute stud.
I would take him. I mean, if we're talking even fantasy draft, I took Justin over Jamar.
So with Bama and wide receiver U, right? So you look at it. I think Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase have the opportunity to overcome the pass. I think you look at Odell and Jarvis Landry. I don't think you could. Jarvis Landry, and I'm a huge Jarvis fan because of his longevity, his consistency, but I wouldn't count him as a top echelon receiver. Even at his prime, there were several guys I would take before.
For sure. But he was kind of one of those fly under the radar guys.
Yeah, he was.
You didn't know it, but he led the NFL in receptions for 3 years.
Absolutely. Look, I'm a huge Jarvis fan. But again, when you're talking about the standard, I think Odell did have those couple of years where he was with
the
New
talk
York.
of the town. People who aren't even football fans just know Odell.
Right.
The catch.
Right.
The catch.
2014, he had 1,300 yards. 2015, he had 1,450 yards. 2016, he had 1,367 yards.
Consistent. Yeah, he started off really hot.
And so, look, maybe he can get back to it. I doubt it. Maybe.
The Ravens.
When it comes to Alabama, we couldn't go far back, but I'm going to go ahead and honorably mention Julio Jones because I think Julio Jones is one of the best receivers to ever play in the NFL, period.
We missed. Okay, so we're just going to mention it. 2011, he missed out on Julio. I missed out on Patrick Peterson. So we had some elite players that we missed out on.
Yeah, so when it comes to receiver, I'm thinking about the recent success, right? So you had careers like I think Henry Rugg could have been a special player. He got in trouble, and that didn't pan out to be what it could have panned out to be. But when you look at who's there right now, I think Amari Cooper. You don't go much further when you're talking about Alabama receivers than Amari Cooper. Look, Amari Cooper. A lot of people, because he played for an Oakland team that wasn't special. You could easily say, hey, look, maybe Amari Cooper is just an above average, slightly above average receiver. I think a lot of people forget. I believe 2015 is rookie year. I think he won offensive rookie of the year, but I can't remember. He got over 1,000 yards his rookie season 2015. Now when you're looking at Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson's numbers,
they both took
they
both got offensive rookie of the years as well.
Yeah, they both surpassed that by a long shot. Now I will say that it's a different football that we're playing now than they were playing in 2015.
Very true.
But nonetheless, they both right now. If I had to take prime Amari Cooper or prime Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, it's no question. I'm taking Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase over him because I think that they just play a much more present or more modern style of football. You have Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle. I think that competition's way closer. I think you're playing on a team that is not nearly as pass heavy as Cincinnati is, and then also or even Kirk Cousins in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson. But you also have Tyreek Hill on that team who's going to just absorb. But Jalen Waddle is really similar to a Jarvis Landry type player. He's that slot receiver that's going to catch a lot of passes, and so Jalen Waddle I think is somebody that a lot of people forget. He kind of hides in the shadows of Tyreek Hill, but he's a really good player. If I had to pick between Jalen Waddle and Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, I'm going to pick Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, but it's not a decision I'm making flippantly.
Solid player. I'd say I love Jalen.
He had 1,356 yards last year with Tua Tagovailoa as his quarterback for half the year, or for 13 games out of the year. Yeah. The other games he had a different quarterback. I can't even remember his name. Skylar or something or another.
Yeah, Skylar Thompson.
That was it. And so, he's a great player. He's I think you put him on a team that has a Joe Burrow kind of quarterback or a Kirk Cousins kind of quarterback who can throw consistently for over 350 yards. I think his numbers are up there. Devontae Smith. So obviously he won the Heisman out of
incredible
8
college player.
Where did he come out of? Where did he go to high school? Where was it? Amite, Louisiana. That's right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that y'all remember. We just came in y'all's backyard and took one of y'all's players. With that being said, his rookie year he had 916 yards. And if I remember right, Jalen Hurts was the quarterback for most of the year. I can't remember who was the quarterback the other part of the year. But again, not another one where and then the second year he had 1,200 yards. Again, not on a team that's gonna produce a ton of yards and passing offense. So yeah, I'll give LSU that right now. If I had to choose between the top 2 receivers in the league being Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, or anybody else, I'm choosing those two because I think they can do it in just about any system the way that they're built. I will say this: Jerry Jeudy is my honorable mention. He's had a lot of injuries. He's not played in a ton of games. He's not been available for a ton of games, I should say. But I think he's a guy that if he can just get with a consistent quarterback that doesn't spend his whole time stretching on a plane like Russell Wilson does, I think he can be a really good receiver. So yeah, I will concede that round to LSU currently being wide receiver U.
It's just kind of insane what came out of 2019 with the with that connection. But to see it, the special thing is they had that kind of season, that championship run, but then to see it carry over on different teams,
for sure,
that's what's been really impressive.
But I will say that 2019 Jalen Waddle.
Oh, I know. That again.
Jamar
that game,
Chase,
we're gonna break that down.
It's insane the amount of talent that was on the fields.
Just crazy. I don't know if we want to. We'll do a mini segment on tight end. We don't need to do too much, but
I don't even think we should.
I'm just gonna give a shout out. I'm gonna give a shout out. Shout out to Foster Moreau. So he was a tight end at LSU.
Foster Moreau got married at the same venue that Hannah and I did the day before Hannah and I got married.
What?
Yep.
No way.
Yep.
Well, shout out, guy from New Orleans. He went to Oakland. He actually did pretty well in there, and I just again want to even shout him right now. He was actually just diagnosed with cancer. I don't know if you know that. So just prayers for him and his family. He was actually looking at coming to the Saints, and he's put football down for now. hoping he gets better. But he's going to be my just shout out. We won't spend too much time on tight end, but if you want to give a shout out to him.
Mine is O.J. Howard. Not a lot of tight ends have come out of Alabama. Irv Smith Jr. had a lot of potential. Didn't really pan out to much. O.J. Howard's been he's been consistent. Again, he hasn't been a showstopper. Look, I'll tell you this, OJ. If you wanted to come back and play at Bama, we need to help at tight end, and I would happily take you back. So we'll stop there with tight ends.
Okay, perfect. All right, so now we're going to look out as we round out the offense for the all-decade team. We're going to look at O-line.
Yeah, not a lot of stats with O-line. Yeah. It's just kind of the eye test. We're just going to throw some names out there.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I'll throw some names out there. As we're looking at just like 5 names, one guy I'll just say for a specific position at center, Lloyd Cushenberry. So he was a guy who really solid player for LSU, and he has just been a year in, year out starter. He was at the Broncos, at Seattle. He's just been starting since he's been in the league. So he's a solid center for me. And then the next guy I'm going to go is Trey Turner at guard. This is a 5-time Pro Bowler. So this is a guy to LSU who, was pretty solid, did his job, but in the NFL at the Giants, he was 5 years in a row Pro Bowler. He just got traded to the Commanders on a 1-year contract. So another just great solid piece. At my left tackle, give me Lyle Collins. Big recruit coming out of high school.
Huge recruit.
Yeah.
Physically and figuratively.
Oh, yeah. Big dude. And now he was with the Bengals, and he actually got hurt. He in the NFL, he's done really well. He was starting. He was at the Bengals. Now he's at the Browns, I believe, trying to help those guys out, Deshaun Watson. So give me him at a tackle position. Ethan Posick, another just solid guy I'm going to toss around, who's a guard at LSU. Great guy. He's a starter now in the NFL. And then at tackle, again, I'm looking through the names, and there's, again, if we're going by position tackle, there's only a couple, but Austin Deculus, he just graduated. He's at the Texans. He's working his way into the lineup. And I also got to shout out Ed Ingram, who's a guard at the Vikings. Those two guys actually did a video project with them, so shout out to both of y'all if you ever listen to this. Rooting you on. So, yeah, that'll round out my kind of offensive line. But if I'm going to be honest, just giving a little preview, I think we got definitely one potential first-rounder on our team right now. Will Campbell is just a dog, animal left tackle. And we also have Emory Jones, who was a freshman last year, All-American. So we got some big linemen coming up in years to come.
So Alabama, we've had there was a couple of years, man. I want to say 3 times in the last 5 years, Alabama's actually won Offensive Line of the Year.
Wow.
Had some really good offensive linemen that have come out. I'll start off with my center, Ryan Kelly. Offense. I was an offensive lineman, left tackle in high school. But I'll say this: offensive linemen are always the unsung heroes. That's just kind of the way that it works. Ryan Kelly came out in 2016 was his rookie year. He has started every game he's been available since then for Indianapolis. Wow. He's gone to 3 Pro Bowls. He's just been a consistent guy for that offensive line. And so I'll say he's my first guy. Landon Dickerson, who is a center at Alabama, plays guard in the NFL, was on Philadelphia's team in that Super Bowl run last year. Man, he's one of those guys that you can't help but to root for. He was kind of on the smaller end of offensive linemen, but done a really good job. He actually went to his first Pro Bowl last year, so he's been in the league for 2 years. He's already made it to 1 Pro Bowl at a position playing for a team that's not easy to succeed for, just because of the way Jalen Hurts plays football. It makes it hard for offensive linemen. You got to hold those blocks a little bit longer. Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams actually is playing for Cincinnati right now, and he actually put in a request to be traded because they just signed, I forgot who, and so he's not happy right now. I can't imagine that Cincinnati's too excited about that. He's been a really good pick. He wasn't really chosen. He wasn't coming out. He was a good left tackle in college, but there was a lot of doubt of whether or not doubt, I should say, but there was a lot of question of whether or not that was going to translate. It has translated. He's played in every game. He started in every game that he's been available for. And so he started 16 games last year, 16 games the year before. He's just all around. He's been a really good offensive lineman, really good left tackle, covering Joe Burrow's blind side. Those are my and then Jedrick Wills Jr. So plays for Tampa Bay. He's just a dog, man. He's a really, really good offensive lineman. One of those guys that you see and you're like, hey, look, I don't want to get in the way. I'm sorry, Cleveland Browns, plays for the Browns. He's one of those guys you don't want to get in the way from. He's 6'4", 307 pounds. That's a big boy. And if I remember right, and I'm reaching way back into the memory banks, but I believe he had he was a pretty quick guy in the combine. He played left tackle, and then he moved around left tackle and right tackle last year. He's just one of those other guys that I'll throw in there.
Nice. Before you go into defense, I just want to give one more shout out. I couldn't pick him because he was past 2012. Big Wit, Andrew Whitworth, had an illustrious career. He would have definitely been my left tackle. I couldn't use him, but I just want to give him a shout out because he just retired. The dude was like a 6-time Pro Bowler. All the way was, just had an incredible season with the Rams, went out on the Super Bowl. Right. Incredible man too. I've gotten to meet him a couple times, so shout out to Big Wit.
I will say this. I think looking back, I think Alabama takes offensive line U right there. I think as of recently, maybe not in the history. I'm sure that it's right. A lot closer. But
right. If I can pull back, recent memory, I give it to Bama. I give it on Bama. All right, so defense. We're maybe on defensive side of the football. We're going to go ahead and start with the D line. And we gave each other 4 positions. 2 D ends, 2 D tackles. I guess I'll kick it off for defense. Some of these guys, again, had great college careers, but maybe didn't pan out as much in the NFL. And again, I wish I could draw on to some dirty D linemen in LSU's history. Digging back to Glenn Dorsey, and we had just some all-time greats. But again, Marcus Spears, Booger McFarland, we had some dogs on the line. But again, we're going 10 years. So again, my first DN, this is the combo one. Well, this isn't like a ranking, but just DN, I've got 2 spots. One of those is Danielle Hunter. So this is a guy who had a pretty solid college, but he's the one guy who's really showed out.
Yeah, in the NFL. He really has.
2-time Pro Bowler. The dude, I think I have his stats up. Maybe I exited out, but he had like 14 and a half
double-digit sacks.
Yeah, double-digit sacks, 3 of his 4 seasons, which is really impressive. He got hurt, I think it was last year. He's coming back, but still one of the top guys. He was on track to be the sack leader in 1 year. So Danielle Hunter, solid DN that I have right there. On the other side, this is a guy who showed out in college. He did pretty well. I was looking at his sacks, but we all remember Barkevious Mingo. Again, this is a guy who I've met, just really quick in. And that's why I want to give an honorable mention on the DN. He reminds me of an Arden Key. So Arden Key, Barkevious Mingo, kind of those quick DNs. You can also stand them up. Great college careers. And I think Arden Key is the one who's kind of showed out more in the NFL. He's starting for the Jaguars right now. So just 2 quick guys in the end. But again, we've got some guys coming up in the ranks.
Was Arden Key drafted by that? I think he was drafted by Raiders, wasn't he? Or am I thinking of somebody else? I'm probably thinking of somebody else.
Gosh, I can try to double check. I don't know what year he was. He was drafted by the Raiders. Yeah, 3rd round to the Raiders. But he spent his time with the Jags recently. D tackle Michael Brockers. So this is a guy who was actually drafted round 1, pick 14. Really showed out in the combine. Big dude. He's at the Lions. So he's just been a solid D line pick right there. And then as we're looking, I wanted to put a guy, but again, he was drafted before, and I'm going to give him a shout out at the end. But my other spot, give me Rashard Lawrence. He's just getting started out. He was on the 2019 team. He's now getting into the starting role. He's working his way in the rotation at the Cardinals. Big boy. He's from Monroe. Shout out to Neville High School. To Rashard Lawrence. I know him as well. Really kind teddy bear of a guy. And the asterisk I'll give on my D-line is D tackle Kyle Williams. Drafted in 2006, had a 12-year career, 6-time Pro Bowler, defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills. Just an absolute animal, but again, he has an asterisk because he was before 2012.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at defensive ends, really defensive linemen, because he used to play all over, you can't go much further than Jonathan Allen for Alabama. That was the guy. I don't know if you remember. I believe it was against Texas A&M, and he Superman speared the quarterback, jumped over the running back, and speared him. It was incredible. It was one of the coolest things. But he's been with the Washington Commanders. He got drafted by the Commanders in 2017. He's been in the Pro Bowl the last 2 years. He's just a really just a stalwart on that defense. And one of those guys that I think is also kind of your role model type player. He's not been the most he's not a stat stuffer, right? So he's not a guy that's going to get a bunch of your stats. And he kept getting bigger in the NFL, right? So he was drafted. Whenever he got drafted, he was a defensive end. Last year or the year before, and I believe the year before that, so 2020 till now, he's played defensive tackle just because he's continued to get bigger. And not when I say bigger, I'm not talking about he's, Vince Wilfork 2.0, just a big guy. He's just gotten more stout. Lost a little bit of speed, but he's still an incredible football player. So he's kind of your defensive end / defensive tackle. Christian Barmore is my other guy. Now look, he's not amounted to much in the NFL yet.
Kind of like Rashard Lawrence, he's getting his feet.
But I think he's one of those players that year 3, 4, and 5 he's gonna be a lot better. And then Quentin Williams. Quentin Williams is one of the goofiest players. There's an interview that he had, and he's wearing his Jets hat, and he sneezed, and immediately after he sneezed, he went, "Achoo, bless you, thank you." He blessed himself and he thanked himself all right there. But he's a absolute monster of a football player, and one of those guys that whenever he was in college, everyone hated to see him. He was not one of those guys that you wanted. So he got first team All Pro last year, and he was selected to the Pro Bowl. He's just been one of those players as he's come into the league that's been kind of he had 12 sacks last year as a defensive tackle, not even as an end. Came in as a tackle, then he got moved to end, and then he got moved back to tackle, and that's kind of been where he's at. So those are my 3 guys. I think it's safe to say when it comes to LSU, Alabama, and defensive line, I think they're about tied.
I was about to say, I think it's a pretty tough push right there.
I think you look back into go back into your memory banks of some of the greats that have come out of both schools. I think overall they've always just had such good players. And again, that's one of those positions it's hard to grade because you have players that come out like Will Anderson is coming out as a defensive end. He'll probably get moved to outside linebacker.
Yep.
And so it's really hard to grade those.
Kind of like Harold Perkins.
Exactly.
He's a DN. He's probably going to be a linebacker. He was kind of like a DN stand-up linebacker. So it's interesting. All right, so going to linebacker. So I'll kick it off here. Again, there's a couple guys who I'm kind of torn on. We have 3 spots. But here's like 2 definites that I'm just going to toss out there. At my middle linebacker, throw in Devin White, just an animal.
Stud.
Pro Bowler, stud, got the Super Bowl ring. The thing is, he's not only just like massive, just extremely built, but he is quick, bro. He is like 4'4" quick, and the dude's like 240. I don't even know what he's at right now, but just an absolute animal, locking down the center, and just I feel really confident having him kind of leading the defense on my side. And then as your quicker outside linebacker, give me Patrick Queen, a guy again who was on that 2019 team, a huge part of that defense. He's at the Ravens and has really stepped into that 1-2 role.
Devin White just requested a trade.
I know, I saw that. That's some news we didn't touch on. But Devin White requested a trade. I would love to see that guy at the Saints. I know we have.
I think anybody would love to see him.
Yeah, I think everyone would love to see him. Yeah. So I got Patrick Queen. He's had a solid NFL career. 2
interceptions last year. Patrick Queen.
Yeah, no. He's a guy who can cover, he can move, and I think really kind of you talk about that 3 to 5 year bloom. I think he's really about to hit and become one of those elite linebackers. Just with that speed, he's able to cover. They can move him around. And so this is where I was torn at the 3 spot. I got a couple names here, and 2 are still like kind of blooming. Or I'd say 1 is blooming, but I'm going to go with Deion Jones. So Debo Jones, he's a lockdown, quick guy at the Falcons forever. Now he's on the Browns, but dude is just an animal. Debo's another. He kind of reminds me of that Devin White. When Devin White came through, I was like, that guy reminds me of Debo Jones, of Dion. Another just stud that I want on my 3 spot. And so I'll tell you the guys I was thinking about. Another guy on Tampa Bay, Quan Alexander. He's another one of those quick,
twitchy.
Twitchy outside linebackers. He's got speed. I'll get to the other guy I'm talking about, but the other one was Damone Clark. So he led LSU last year, or maybe it was the year before.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. He's at the Cowboys now. They're projecting like he might be playing on the field with Michael Parsons. So
wow.
So he's kind of like working his way in there, just consistent guy. He didn't make my top 3. And the guy I was thinking about that just came up was K'Von Chaisson, top 15 pick to the Jaguars. He was a DN, so he didn't make my list, but he just came to mind. So I just want to mention him. He got hurt, but that's my linebacker core. Give me Devin White, Patrick Queen, and Deion Jones starting.
Okay. So I got a couple of honorable mentions. Reggie Ragland didn't pan out to be much in the NFL. Matter of fact, I believe his first few years he didn't play in the NFL. I think he played in the CFL. But he was one of those guys when he was in college. It was so fun to watch him play. Just played a really tough, really really hard nosed football player. But my 3 guys, I'm gonna go with my first is Rashad Evans. Again, another guy that was really a big part of the Alabama defense. One of those guys that he came out in 2018. He got drafted in the first round. Hasn't panned out to be much, but I think he's one of those guys that, in the right system, playing the right way, he can be pretty good. So you're looking at active NFL right now. I think he's one of those guys that you could look at and say that
the Falcons or
he's with the Falcons right now, correct?
Falcons, yeah.
And so he's one of those. Look, you're looking at Mac Wilson. So look, I'm a big Mac Wilson fan. Whenever he came out, I thought he was. I thought he played better than he got credit for at Cleveland. So he's another guy that's kind of honorable mention. Dante Hightower played for years in the NFL. He's just one of those guys that he's been a constant stalwart of the position. One of those guys that played. So he's been in the league since 2012. He's been in the league a long time. Wow. And he's just always been one of those guys that you can depend on. He's never really been this huge stat stuffer, but he's made it to a couple of Pro Bowls. As 2016 and 2019, he was at the Pro Bowl. I believe he was second team All Pro those 2 years. Just one of those guys that you really look at and you're like, hey, I can, this guy is consistent. He's going to give me the same kind of production. So C.J. Mosley played for the Baltimore Ravens for a long time. Then he went over to the Jets. He's another guy, a real good production out of him over the last few years, or over the last almost decade now. And so he's one of those guys. And so my 2 main guys, C.J. Mosley and Dante Hightower. The other guys are kind of honorable mention. Again, looking at it, listen to the positions that you have. I'll say this: I think LSU has the edge right now. I think when you look at Devin White, and you look at Patrick Queen and what they have to offer right now.
Yep.
Now, Will Anderson might have something to say about that when he comes out.
I think it's going to be interesting once we do after this year.
Yeah.
What pans out. We got some guys coming out.
For sure.
Which will be really interesting to talk about.
And I want to do one more kind of honorable mention of a guy that I think he's on the up and up. He can end up being really good. Is Christian Harris. So he's projected to be the first string will linebacker. I think he can be really good. And if I remember right, let me look this up real quick because I believe Christian Harris is from. Let me see. That's right. He's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
He went to University Lab. So big shout out to Christian Harris. He had some injury trouble when he was at Alabama. Hopefully that does not carry on over, but I think he's one of those guys, when he gets a chance, he's going to be a really good player.
Nice. All right, so DBU, this is a big one. Like you said, we missed that 2011 cutoff, so there's a guy who I really want in there.
Right.
Patrick Peterson, I'm just going to give him a shout out at the beginning. He would be a lock in my corner position. but he missed the cut. So
He'd be a lock in anyone's quarterback
I got to
position.
shout him out. I mean, he's still playing elite football at
He is.
however old he is. I mean, yeah, I guess this is his 11th season in the NFL. Okay, so we're going. This is a big position group. Big thing to talk about. DBU. And LSU kind of has claimed it for a while, but there's a lot of players that have been coming through, and it's exciting. And so right now in LSU stage, we're rebuilding that. But there's been some great guys. Give me a corner. There's a lot of guys here. There's a lot of guys, but
This is a hard one.
I know. I had to narrow it down. We gave each other 2 starting spots. So give me one of the startings. Again, this is a guy that just a pure talent. I think he's going to be one of the most elite cornerbacks in the NFL, Derek Stingley. Just give me Stingley right now. I'm not saying he's 1 or 2 because I think off NFL resume, he would be in my second spot. But I'm just going to talk about Stingley, staple of that 2019 championship run. Athletic ability. I looked at his stats. He's not going to have crazy stats because honestly, people didn't throw to him much. He was right behind Sauce Gardner in that defensive rookie of the year conversation. Sauce took it. But Derek Stingley, I'll put him at a corner for me. But a guy I feel really good about who I'm going to put at the 2. And I was thinking about putting 2 veterans, but I'm kind of banking on that Stingley continues to improve.
Right.
My other guy is Tre'Davious White. So he's a guy at the Buffalo Bills, lockdown corner, 3-time Pro Bowler. The dude, again, he had a solid college career. I think he was there at the same time as another guy who I'm going to mention as an honorable mention, but Tre'Davious White has really shown out in the NFL as just a really solid lockdown corner on the edge for the Buffalo Bills. So give them at my 1 and 2, but some honorable mentions is Morris Claiborne. He was a top 10 pick to the Dallas Cowboys, had a great college NFL career, who I was thinking about, but I didn't put him in that starting spot. Dante Jackson, you know him as the Dreads at the Panthers.
One of the fastest guys ever.
Oh, yeah. The dude he's killing it. He's been starting every year. He's been playing. And so Dante Jackson's an amazing. Another guy who I, again, couldn't put on it because I had to pick 2, but Gritty Williams. He's a guy, if you remember, green hair at the Eagles. So, yeah, there's some great guys. And, again, Patrick Peterson was a year off, missing the list. But 2 solid corners in Tre'Davious White and Derek Stingley. And then bringing out my safeties, you got to throw in one of LSU's all-time greats, Tyrann Mathieu. Put him at the safety. The dude, again, like 10 years removed, is starting for the Saints. And I think he still has some good years left in him.
Yeah.
One of the most, if we're talking about LSU years, one of the most, electrifying defensive players to ever come through LSU football. One of the guys who has literally had his hand on changing 3+ games for the Tigers of just strip fumbles for touchdowns. Just incredible dude who also got a Super Bowl ring at the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's cool to hear his story of redemption as he, with the whole thing with the drug stuff and all that. So Tyrann Mathieu at safety. The other guy, give me Jamal Adams. Another just incredible safety at LSU. One of the most elite safeties in the NFL at the Seahawks. He got injured, I think, last year. And so he's coming back from injury. But Jamal Adams has been one of the top-tier safeties in the NFL. From college, one of the best, now the NFL. And then an honorable mention is our safety from the 2019 team, Grant Delpit. Mm-hmm. He's now the starter at the Browns. Another guy who's just great NFL production from college as well. So I feel really good about LSU's defensive backfield.
Well, feel good for a little bit because look, I think one of the best cornerbacks really reminds me of Champ Bailey. Plays at the same team Champ Bailey did. Patrick Surtain Jr. or the second. I don't know what he goes by, but
the second.
The dude's an absolute stud. So he's come in and he's one of those guys that consistently, week after week, goes after or goes against whoever their best receiver is. So he's one of those guys that nobody throws to. He's kind of real similar to what you were saying to Derek Stingley. Like, he had 4 interceptions his rookie year, 2 interceptions last year. Last year he got first team All-Pro and he was selected to the Pro Bowl. As his second year at a cornerback, playing for a team like Denver that didn't have a lot of attention except for bad attention, that's pretty good. So Patrick Surtain, I think of all the recent guys, I think of Derek Stingley, Patrick Surtain, all these guys that we're naming off that are recent, I'd say within the last 5 years, I don't think there's a single guy that's better than Patrick Surtain.
That's debatable. That's debatable.
Yeah, we can debate it, but you could lose a debate. No, I think Surtain is one of those guys that
we'll see. We'll see how Stingley pans out.
I'm not saying again. I'm not saying that in 5 years, Patrick Surtain. I'm saying right now the trajectory they're on. I think Surtain's he's just playing on a level that you haven't seen a cornerback play at their first few years. Usually, you think about it. Whenever a quarterback, when you have Aaron Rodgers behind the helm, Drew Brees behind the helm, Tom Brady, who are they throwing at?
The
rookies, yeah. the second year guys, not Patrick Surtain. They wanted no part of him. The other guy that I'll mention as my starter is Marlon Humphrey. Just consistently one of the best lockdown cornerbacks in the NFL. Has been playing for Baltimore forever. He's a guy that again quarterbacks are going to avoid. Quarterbacks are not going to throw toward him. Look, he had 3 interceptions last year. He's had 12 over the course of his career. So that's not glaring. You're like, oh man, that's not big. The dude he sticks people. He had 1 year in 2020. He had 8 forced fumbles. Goodness. At the cornerback position. He is sticking people. So he's one of those guys you don't want to run into because you're going to lose that fight most of the time. Really good cornerback. There's a couple of guys that are in the league right now, and Daniel and I had this conversation where, well, what about these undrafted guys? There's some guys that are making names for themselves, right? So you have some honorable mentions. You have playing for Pittsburgh, Levi Wallace. So he's a starting cornerback in the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I think that's great. That's one of those things that you see. You have some other guys that are just. You have a lot of guys that are playing. Avery Anthony. You have Tony Brown. Tony Brown came out of Beaumont, Texas a few years ago. I remember him because he's a track star. He actually, I believe he was a junior Olympic. A super fast guy, came and played at Bama. Kind of bounced around the league, but he's a second string nickelback for the Colts, and so he's a contributor. Plays a lot of special teams. Really a great athlete. But those are my 2 guys. I think when you're looking at honorable mention, I'm almost forgetting about him because I'm not a huge fan of. I'm really not. I think it's debatable whether he's a good cornerback, but he makes a lot of interceptions. Trevon Diggs. So he makes a lot of interceptions. He's kind of a highlight reel. He also gives up a lot of yards. Now the argument can be said of the guys that get a lot of interceptions. They're also always going to give up more yards because of the fact that they're ball hawks. They're going to take a risk. But I just look in 2021. He was All Pro and he was selected a Pro Bowl. He had 11 interceptions.
Yeah, it was just
that's a ton.
Yeah.
And so
I would say he got exposed a little bit in 2022. Or what people were saying.
I think
because he was
greedy. He wanted that title again.
I think some quarterbacks kind of saw that too.
And so they're going to take a chance. The more accurate guys. At safety position, I feel great about my safety position. Okay. I know you got Tyrann Mathieu and look,
Jamal Adams. Hey, I didn't mention Jamal Adams is a 4-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah. Look, I hear you. I'm with you. And look, I'm a huge fan of Tyrann Mathieu. I think he's one of the most electrifying college football players to ever be on the field. But at my safety position, I'm going to go Micah Fitzpatrick. So Micah Fitzpatrick, Minka. Love Minka. Loved watching him in Alabama. He got drafted to Miami. Then in 2019, he got traded. That was when Brian Flores traded him, right? And so he got traded. Even while being traded, he was still selected in his second year in the league. After being traded mid-season, was still selected to be an All-Pro. So he was an All-Pro in 2019, 2020, and 2022. And all 3 of those years, he also was chosen to go to the Pro Bowl. And so he's one of the best safeties in the NFL. He's just an absolute stud. And then Landon Collins. And that should hit close to home because that was the guy that flipped that everyone was mad about.
I saw that recruitment live. The dude flips from LSU
to Bama. So I think Jamal Adams and Tyrann Mathieu are better than Landon Collins in the NFL. I will say that. Yep. But I think Minka would give those 2 a run for their money because I think Minka's just that special of a player. So I think when it comes to DBU,
this is close, bro.
It's close. I think it's too close. I think in 5 years we'll be able to decide. Okay. Right now, because the cutoff is 2011. I think if we go back to 2011 and put Patrick Peterson in, LSU's in just slightly over Bama. Now, I'm not going to say head and shoulders over, but they're slightly over. But I'll say with that, they're close to being tied right now.
I think that's a pretty close push. Like you said, we'll see what happens with Surtain, Stingley, some of these guys coming up. See what really happens. And Delpit, that's it.
So let me kind of cap this off.
Okay.
My all-decade team.
Okay.
Right?
Do you do any special teams? Any shout-outs?
J.K. Scott.
I'm going to give a shout-out. I just want to say, I want to shout out Cade York. Dude was drafted round 4. That's like one of the highest kickers been drafted. I just want to give that man a shout-out. Cade York and also Cole Tracy. He hit a big, everyone will remember the Florida kick. Shout out to Cole Tracy. And Cade York hit one too. And then I got to give a punter. Shout out to Australia, Brad Wing. The dude was a legend.
Right, yeah, he was
hilarious.
A legend, yeah.
He got drafted as well. Just got to shout out those guys real quick.
And J.K. Scott, punter out of Alabama. He got drafted in the 5th round, 172 overall pick. Played for Green Bay. Now he's with the Chargers. He's been a good pick. He's been a good punter in the NFL so far.
Okay, go back. All right, so recapping the all-decade team. Let's hear it.
So all-decade team, I'm going to do quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Again, Mac Jones had a better single year. I think you look at Tua, I'm just choosing Tua, and that might be biased, but it is.
It might be emotional, but that's good.
My running backs, Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs. Again, I think at this point I can just go ahead and shut my computer because with those two monsters running the ball, I think it's going to be hard pressed for anyone to stop them. Wide receiver, I'm going to go Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy.
So we're taking 4? All right. Okay. I'll give you 4.
Yeah, those are the 4 that I have written down. I think there's some close guys that can be. I think Calvin Ridley can make an argument for being up there, and he might coming back. I hope he does. But right now, I'm going to go Jerry Jeudy because if he can stay healthy, I think he's really good. Offensive line, I'm going Landon Dickerson, Jedrick Wills Jr., Jonah Williams, Evan Neal, and Ryan Kelly. Evan Neal's still really early on in his NFL career, but I think he's going to pan out to be okay. Linebacker, I'm going to go
D-line.
D-line, I'm going to go Jonathan Allen, Christian Barmore, and Quinn Williams. Cornerback and safety, I'm going to go Pat Surtain, Marlon Humphrey, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Landon Collins. And linebacker, I'm going to go C.J. Mosley, Dante Hightower, and I'll go Mac Wilson for my all-decade team. I think he can do pretty good.
Let's go. So are you saying all-decade like playing right now or just like you just all-decade team?
Just all right. This is for my...
Perfect. All right.
It just happens to be that a lot of them are still playing.
That's good. No, that's actually a good thing. All right, all-decade team LSU. We got Joe Burrow at the helm. Feel really good about him leading the team. He's handing the ball off to my 2 spots, Leonard Fournette and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Got kind of 2 types of backs right there. Receiving core, Burrow's got lots of options. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, and Jarvis Landry. I mean, that's going to be just electric. A little shout-out tie-in to Foster Moreau.
Right, O.J. Howard.
Right, O.J. Howard for you. At the line, we got Austin Deculus, Ethan Posick, Cushenberry at center. We got Trey Turner at the guard, Lyle Collins at tackle. And now we're looking at the defensive side of the ball. Give me D tackles, Michael Brockers, Rashard Lawrence, defensive end, Daniil Hunter, and Arden Key.
Right.
Linebackers, you got Devin White at the middle linebacker, Patrick Queen, Deion Jones,
That's
Debo
a
Jones.
stud of a linebacker.
Stout linebacker core. I'm feeling really good about just getting those running backs. I mean, you got some big running backs, but that'll be a battle. And then got in my DB backfield, we got Derek Stingley on one side, Tre'Davious White on the other, with Tyrann Mathieu and Jamal Adams locking it in the center at safety. So I feel good, bro.
Yeah,
both these teams. This is impressive.
I want to say that both these teams are going to have an offense that's going to go off, and it's going to be this. And look, 2019 was as close to we saw it, and it did go off.
A lot of these players
42 to 45, and so it was definitely a show of that. But I'll say this: when I look at that defense, Pat Surtain, you got Derek Stingley Jr., Tyrann Mathieu, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Your linebacker core is literally a steel wall. I gotta say, I think I see this playing out to be a lower scoring game. We actually talked about and leave us a comment. Let us know if you'd be interested in this. But we've talked about doing a Madden game where we make a team with all these starters and see kind of how it shakes out. It'll be interesting to see.
I think that'd be fun. And we also want to say too, if we miss any players that you think could have made
For sure.
this team, let us know. Send us a message, like I said, on Instagram or Facebook, whatever it may be. Let us know if there's any guys that kind of sifted through the cracks. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But this is a fun exercise.
Yeah, so what we'll probably do is so the draft is the 27th. So that's not this coming up week, it's the following week after that. So what we'll do is this coming up week we're probably going to do where we focus mostly on the Packers and the Saints. We'll probably do a mock draft, 7-round draft with those teams. Look, if you're a fan of another team, comment, let us know, and we'll do a small shout out where we'll focus a little bit on the draft, but we're going to focus primarily on our two teams.
Just give a preview of okay, what's an ideal draft of
ideal, perfect case scenario, but we want to be realistic.
Yes.
Yeah, a realistic, perfect case scenario. But with that being said, Daniel, I think that's all we got today.
That's all we got. This was a fun one, man.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in to the Rivals In-Law Podcast, Episode 6, and drop us a follow. Let us know if y'all want to hear anything else.
Yeah, and share it out to anybody who would find this interesting little LSU Bama dynamic, which I feel like there's a lot of podcasts that focus on each camp, but we're kind of merging the two, which is pretty exciting, and it's going to really build up to when we play each other in the season. So,
absolutely. Thank y'all.
Thank you.